Hi guys, welcome back. So in the last lesson we completed our plant. So in this lesson onwards we'll be creating the rest of the small models and other things in our concept model. So in this lesson we'll be focusing on creating these models and small coral kind of things in the background. So before that, now we have a lot of models already completed. Because of that we'll not be able to see our concept image properly. So I actually created a new layer here, and I added all the completed models into that layer, so I can actually hide and make them visible anytime I want. So for now I'll just rename it to completed models, and for now I'll just hide it. So now we can actually focus on creating our models. So in order to create these models, we are actually using polycubes. Okay, so first you can go to poly modeling shelf and you can select the polygon cube. After that you can just create a regular cube on our front view. After that, you can, in the perspective view itself, you can actually adjust how much thickness you want. Once that is done, now you can actually select the vertex component and you can just align them something like that. Okay, once that is done, now we will be adding extra details and other things. So the next thing is we have to add in between one more edge loop. So we will be doing that. We'll just select the edge loop tool and we'll add one edge loop in the center. After that, you can just edit the vertex again and you can actually match with the concept image. Once that is done, we are actually, next part is we are going to focus on our perspective view. We are going to add one more edge loop in the center, or you can just go to side view here itself, and here we will add one more edge loop. So we'll just select one of the edge loop, press Ctrl and right click and select edge ring utilities and to edge ring and split. And once that is done, you will be adding one more edge loop in the side of that cube. After that, you can go to the front view itself. Now we want to make it more round shape. So what we are going to do is we are going to select these two edges and we're just going to move them outside. On both of the sides we'll do the same thing. And for the top, we are actually going to select the vertex, these two vertex, and we are just going to move them down slightly, so we actually have a shape something like that. And then we can actually rearrange the vertex to match with our model. Okay, so once that is done, if you press 3 on the keyboard, now you have a rounded shape something like that. So if you want, you can actually make the top part more tapered and the bottom part can make it wider, so you have a shape like this. Once that is done, you can just delete these two faces in the bottom, and now we actually completed that particular shape. So once that is done, you can just move it down and you can align it with our base. And you can re-enable our completed models and you can just align it there itself. And after that, you can just duplicate that particular model pressing Ctrl D on the keyboard, and you can just move them and relocate. You can scale them, rotate them any way you want, and you can make multiple copies of that. Then you will have a few more copies and you can add a few more copies and you will be able to create them. So once that is done, the next thing is we have to focus on the bigger model in the back. So for that also we are going to use the same technique. We are going to use the polycube and we are going to do the same technique here also. So for that we'll be focusing on the front view first. We'll select a polycube and we'll create a cube roughly the entire length of that background shape. And here also we'll give a thickness, something like that. Okay, the next thing is we have to add a few edge loops based on that extra details. So we'll just select the edge loop tool, and here you can see first in the beginning itself we have a extender from that main shape. So we'll just add one edge loop there. Wherever that extension is coming, we will add one more edge loop. So here based on this shape we will add one here, and in the split we'll add one here, and in the end we'll add one here, and we'll just continue the same process until we added all the edge loop necessary for creating that particular shape. Okay, now we actually added all the vertex. So now we can actually select them and rearrange them based on our shape. So in the beginning itself we'll just select the vertex and we will align them based on our model. Here and all you can just align them based on the flow, how you think that flow is going to be. You can see that it's actually going down, then it's going up, so you can actually roughly align them according to that flow of that shape itself. So once you align everything, you can add extra edge loops in order to maintain the detail. In between I'll add one more edge loop here and I'll just move it down slightly, and here also I'll add one more edge loop, and this one I'll just move it up like that. So once that is done, the next thing is we are going to extrude each of these extensions from that base shape. So here we'll just select the face model, and for the first shape we'll select the top face, and we will extrude, and we will just move it and align with that extended area, something like that. So we will continue the same process here also. We'll just extrude once, after that we'll just extrude this bigger one more time. Like that, and in between if you want you can add extra edge loops, and you can actually edit that shape in order to match with the concept much more closely. So after that is done, you can just continue the process. Okay, so now you can see we actually roughly completed all the shapes, and we will now focus on the perspective view in order to complete the shape. So now if you press 3 on the keyboard, you can see the shape is actually uh, almost completed. So the next thing is, first we are going to select all the shapes in the bottom and we are going to delete them. Okay, once that is done, we are going to add one more edge loop in the side of the shape, splitting both of the sides. And after that, we will just first we will scale them sideways like that. And for the top part, we will just select individually and we'll just move them up. Same like before, we are going to make it more like a rounded shape, so it will be more like a curved rounded shape, and when we smooth the model finally, so it will look much more proper. Okay, so we actually completed that part. The next thing is we are going to add one more edge loop here in the main shape, and this one we are going to slightly scale it a little outside, so that way we will have a tapering towards the top. And for the bottom one also, we are going to scale it little bit more, so we have a tapering, and when we smooth it, it will look much more nicer. So that is our final model. And if you want much more detailed, what you can do is I'm going to show that in a separate shape. So you can duplicate the shape, or you can work on the same shape itself. After completing this base shape, you can actually select the model and you can press shift right click, and you can select the smooth option. So that way what happens is it will be much more smooth, and we will get much more polygons to work with. So for now I'm just going to stick with the base model, and once that is done, you can re-enable the previously completed models, and you can just move them back, and you can align them in the back. So now you can see it's actually touching most of the models, and it's actually really a straight shape. So in order to edit that shape, what you can do is we can actually, one thing is we can double click and select each of the edge loops, and you can move them. But sometimes you will not be able to select the entire edge loop, so that way that time you will be able to it will be much more difficult for you to edit that shape. So for that we are going to use a separate tool called lattice tool. So once you roughly align the model, something like that, after that what you can do is you can go to the rigging shelf, and here we have a tool called lattice tool is actually used for editing a shape that contains lot of polygons or edges, something like that. You can see once you clicked on the lattice, a box will be appearing around that model itself, and in the lattice shape also you have divisions on the side, top, and all the directions. And here we don't need 5 here, we are just going to keep it at 2, and for the top we'll add a 5, and now we actually have a more subdivisions on the side. So the next thing is we can select the you can select that lattice shape, and you can just right click and select lattice point. Once that is done, you can see just like vertex, lot of points are selected on the shape itself. Now you can drag and select each of these points, and you can just move them. And once you move them, based on how much that point is controlling that shape, it's actually start moving, and you can actually edit them and align them. And each of these points is controlling a certain area of that shape. So whenever you are moving that particular points, that influence area will be also moved, and it will be much easier for you to control that shape this way. so that way, so you don't have to edit the edges or vertex in order to edit the shapes. Okay, so that is our shape completely aligned and edited. So once that is done, you can just select the shape and you can go to edit window and delete by type, and you can just delete the history, so the lattice will be disappeared. After that, you can just move around the other models slightly little bit, and the final model will be completed. Okay, so that is our next part of our model completed, and you can just move few of the models in order to make everything visible little bit more. And you can duplicate these small shapes, and you can actually fill the shape much more, and so you will not be having a lot of empty spaces. So for now we will just duplicate these small shapes, and we will rearrange them around the model, so will not have much of empty areas. And you can do this even after the texturing completed, so it will be easier for you to maintain the texturing and all. Okay, so now we actually completed the shape. The next part, we are going to add the extra plants and a few of that ground tiles and all, and we will finish up the modeling process in the next few videos. After that, we will move on to the texturing, unwrapping and the texturing of the models. So I'll see you guys in the next video.